everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and boy, I am pogo stick happy to give you this episode of Boomerocity because of this interview, I've got to check off another item on my bucket list, and that is interviewing the legendary great guitarist Warren Haynes. I mean, if you haven't heard of Warren Haynes, I don't know where you've been, because this dude is all over the landscape of the soundtrack of our youth and our adulthood. I've seen him in concert once and loved watching the performance. And so I had always wanted to talk to him, and it's taken me several years, but here you go. We talk about three things. We talk about his upcoming album, Dreams and Songs, which is him working with the Asheville Symphony, his upcoming tour with Ziggy Marley, and his community work in his hometown of Asheville, North Carolina. So it's a great chat, very fun, very informative, very laid back. I think you'll love it as always. And so when you watch this, just sit down with your favorite drink and snack and watch it to the bitter end. No, it's not bitter, it's a very happy ending. As always, I ask that you hit like, and if you're not already a subscriber, please hit subscribe. It won't cost you a dime. And of course, share this interview and any other interviews you like with your music-loving friends, especially if they're Warren Haynes and Gov't Mule fans. So without any further ado, here is my long-awaited first of what I hope are many more interviews to come with the legendary Warren Haynes. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care.
Hello.
Hello, Warren. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I am doing great. Where are you clicking in from?
From home. I'm home for another 2 weeks, and then my tour starts back up.
Ah, good deal. Well, hey, I first of all, how much time do I have with you? I don't want to overshoot the runway here.
What do you need? I think they had mentioned to me a half hour.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it at that. I got a bunch of questions, but as we progress, I may throw some out on the fly. But anyway, I think we can do it in a half hour, no problem.
Okay.
So, all right, man. Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time and for all the years of great music, man. Your playing's all over the soundtrack of not only my youth but my life. So, thank you so much for that.
Oh, and, my pleasure. Thank you.
And then, secondly, I interviewed a guy, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. Hispanic man who was in his family band called Allman. His name was Jan Carlo Defon, and you had played on an album that I had interviewed him about, and man, he just spoke so glowingly of you, and I have lost track of him, but I think I just found his contact information, new contact information. I think he's just focusing on production now, and his sister ran on with the band, but man, he talked a lot about your contributions to that album at that time. Do you remember them? Are you good friends with them?
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah. I haven't heard from them in quite some time, but have fond memories of that.
Yeah. They're a great band. I'm disappointed they didn't hit stronger here in the U.S. And
yeah,
I think for a time he moved up here for a while just to lay low, and I think he had a motorcycle accident too. That might have contributed to why he's just producing now. But
yeah.
But anyway, on this chat, I want to cover your upcoming LP, the upcoming tour, and your community service there in Asheville if we have time for that. But this album, I've heard a cut or two that you guys have released, and I guess the question becomes, after everything you've done in your career, what made this the right time to finally release this particular performance? Because it's a little different than all your other work.
Well, we were planning to release it right after the actual show, which was right before the COVID lockdown. Mm-hmm. And we decided that once COVID happened, we didn't want it to get lost in the shuffle, because it's kind of a once in a career sort of release. It's like a retrospective of 30 something years of my career. And so we put it on the back burner as far as when we were going to put it out. Now seems like the right time. I've been itching to put it out for quite some time, but I've been really busy since we've been able to go back to work after COVID. You know, Gov't Mule did 2 albums. I did a solo record. I've been doing a lot of touring, and just finally glad to be putting it out now, and I'm very proud of it. You know, working with a symphony is very different for me, and I enjoyed it extremely. We found a lot of ways to kind of include improvisation along with the symphony, which is very important to me. But each time that I have that opportunity, I learned something from the experience. It was just a fantastic couple of nights. And the fact that we were able to do it in Asheville at the Thomas Wolfe Auditorium was really special.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that. I mean, I remember an interview with Joe Bonamassa when he did his orchestra thing, and he was talking about how difficult it can be because orchestras obviously are, stuck to the page, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if you're known for nothing else, you're known as being a jamming improvisational type of player. And so, did the band the orchestra just kind of go into like a holding pattern musically while you went in and did your thing, and then some kind of signal to get back onto the page? Or how if you give me a little inside baseball, how did that work for you? How did you guys make that happen?
Yeah, there were times when that was the case where built into the arrangement would be a section where the band would improvise and the symphony would lay out. And then the conductor, Rich Daniels, who not coincidentally is a jazz musician himself, he would bring, on my cue, he would bring the band back in at a strategic time. But it really helped having Rich there because he's such an experienced conductor, but he also is an improviser. So he understands both worlds. There were other times when I'm improvising to what the symphony is playing. What they're playing is written out, but what I'm playing is not. It's just responding to what they're doing. And it was a learning experience, a very enjoyable one, because anytime you dive into something new like that, it's just really fun. And of course, we had an amazing band: Oteil Burbridge on bass, Jeff Sipe on drums, John Medeski on keyboards, Greg Osby on saxophone, and my friend Edwin McCain, who is a wonderful artist in his own right, volunteered to be one of the background singers along with Jasmine Muhammad. And it was just an amazing experience. I'm so glad that we were able to record it, and I think everybody will be pleasantly surprised at the marriage between those two worlds.
Yeah, I agree. From the cuts I've heard, I agree with you. I read somewhere where you said that the Jerry Garcia Symphonic Celebration was really what opened the door to working with orchestras. And looking back on that, how much did that experience influence doing Dreams and Songs?
Quite a bit, actually. That was my first experience playing with an orchestra. And when I had gotten a call from the Jerry Garcia estate saying that they had this idea about doing Jerry's music with the symphony, and they wanted it to be with a different guest artist, and they asked if I would be interested in being the first one, and I said, absolutely, I would be honored. And so that was my kind of induction into this whole world. And 2 or 3 of those arrangements wound up on Dreams and Songs as well. It's a double CD, so there's a lot of music, but I kept the arrangement for Terrapin Station and for Black Peter and for Shakedown Street that go all the way back to that Jerry Garcia Symphonic Celebration. Working with an orchestra is something I always thought about, but it's always, eventually down the road, we'll see what happens. But when they called me about that, it was just such a wonderful opportunity that it just gave me the chance to dive in head first, and it's been really fun.
Well, I know some other artists and bands have done it. Kiss, Foreigner's done it, and I actually watched that in Nashville just before COVID hit. And I know there's others. Bonamassa did his thing, and several others. So I think, I mean, you obviously know this better than I, but I would think that being able to do some intermittent gigs like that with various orchestras around the country would be very well received. But I realize that takes a lot of time to set those things up and get in sync with them. Have you given any thought to about doing that, depending on how this comes out?
Yeah, I've done a few here and there, and we have 2 nights scheduled next year in Nashville, Tennessee, and I think we'll probably add some more to promote this record. It is a major undertaking, but I look forward to doing more and more of those, and it really is fun. I did want to point out that I think one of the major differences between this release and some of the others that I've heard, obviously I'm not exposed to all of them, but I've never been a big fan of marrying symphonic music and rock music or jazz or blues or pop music just for the sake of doing it. I've always felt like more often than not, it doesn't really work. I think it's more of a song by song basis. And luckily, between my association with the Allman Brothers and Gov't Mule and the Grateful Dead and my solo records, there was a lot of material to choose from. So I only chose the songs that I felt like worked really well. I think most music, as I mentioned, for my own personal taste, doesn't really work so well, and that includes most of my music. I just think it's great to have the opportunity to pick the songs that I think are really enhanced by the symphony.
Mm-hmm. Well, your song "Banks of the Deep End" has become a signature song for Gov't Mule. What surprised you the most when you first heard it performed with a 64-piece orchestra?
Well, the power that only an orchestra can produce is quite amazing. So when they take some of those lines going in and out of the bridge and into the key changes and stuff, it just kind of shines a whole new light on the song itself. I was lucky enough to work with a bunch of different arrangers, all of who are excellent, and we were able to kind of choose the right arranger for each song. And this guy Jim Gray, who's out of Nashville, did Banks of the Deep End and did a fantastic job. Until you hear what they do, you don't really know what to expect, because each arranger would take it into a different place. And so hearing them all for the first time was extremely exciting for me. And I was really happy, knocked out with everything they all did.
Did you hear anything in any of those compositions, working with them and performing it with the orchestra, that you hadn't ever noticed before, but was pretty much always there? But it's like, oh crap, I hadn't noticed this. This is pretty cool,
Yeah, there were little subtle things like that, especially with some of the longer pieces. Like we did a version of Terrapin Station that goes into Slipknot and back into Terrapin Station, and it's quite long. I think it's 12 or 13 minutes. And they were able, the arranger, I think on that, Sean O'Loughlin, was able to take some of the subtleties from the Grateful Dead version and apply them in a different way. Of course, the original Terrapin Station was orchestrated, and I don't think they were ever able to do that in a live setting. And so my initial reason for wanting to do that song, going back to the Garcia Symphonic Experience or Celebration, was that given the audience and myself an opportunity to hear that in a live setting, which I know the Grateful Dead always wanted to do. I love that sometimes the arrangers would take some simple little keyboard line or guitar line or even a background vocal line or something and turn it into something major. And it's just a refreshing way of experiencing the music. And in the song we're talking about with Banks of the Deep End, some of those lines just take on a heavier characteristic with the symphony playing them.
Was there any of your songs or any of the catalog that you wanted to tap into that you desperately wanted to be part of the set list that just simply wouldn't translate into a symphonic format?
No, so far I haven't had that problem. We did do a version of Fire in the Kitchen from my first solo record, Tales of Ordinary Madness. We had that song arranged for the symphony, and we recorded it in Asheville for this project. But myself nor Don Was, the producer, were happy with the performance. It wasn't so much the arrangement. We just felt like we didn't capture the performance, so we didn't include it on this record. But everything else that we went for that night, we were very happy with.
Was there, let's see, how would I phrase it? Did any song surprise you by becoming dramatically better once the orchestra became a part of it, and has caused you to say, heck, how can I package this and make this a regular without an orchestra?
Well, there's a song that I wrote with Greg Allman called Just Another Rider that's on his Low Country Blues album. Mm-hmm. He and I wrote that song together, and I had written this horn line for it that kind of got lost in the shuffle and didn't wind up being on his recorded version. And so when we were doing the arrangement for the symphony, my friend Stephen Bernstein did the arrangement for that song, and I sent him that horn line from the original version, and he was able to add it back into his orchestration, and along with the orchestra playing it, it's just really fantastic. And so now I think that's kind of become part of the way I approach that song for the future.
Cool. Centering on Asheville a little bit. Well, before I do, I want to ask you, you mentioned Nashville, which is where I saw Foreigner with the Nashville Symphony and Choir before COVID hit. Where are you going to be doing that in Nashville, or do you know yet? Has that been nailed down as far as the venue is concerned?
I think it's called Shimmerhorn. It's where probably the same place, right?
Yeah, yep, same exact place. The acoustics are amazing. I saw James Burton's. I was at the James Burton fundraiser that he did before the shutdown too. I've heard it both ways. The locals say either Schermerhorn or Skirmerhorn. I give up trying to know which way it is. So
I'm with you. Yeah.
So recording this in your own hometown, it kind of struck me as being especially meaningful for you. How did performing there add to the emotion of these concerts?
Well, it made it very emotional for me, much more so than it would have been in any other city. But there's also a bit of a background story in the way that the project started out. It was going to be a studio recording with Don Was producing. And as we started putting everything together, we realized that we weren't going to be able to get the size of the orchestra that we wanted and the size of the band that we wanted all together in the studio at the same time. And it was being discussed that we would have to record the symphony separately. And I was very much of the opinion that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be inspired by the symphony as I was playing and singing. And Don said, well, why don't we make it a live performance? And it'll probably be even more exciting. And I said, great, let's do that. So once that came about, the idea of doing it in Asheville was daunting, to say the least. But but I'm really glad that we made that decision because it was so emotional for me. And he also suggested the title "Dreams and Songs," which is a very kind of autobiographical song that I wrote years ago. And it just all started making sense at that time. And I'm really glad that we were able to make this particular record in front of an Asheville crowd.
What makes Asheville such a creative home for you? What is it about the town that inspires you?
Well, I grew up in Asheville and was born and raised there. Um, at that time, there was always a great underground music scene there, but there was never a music scene like exists today. The past 20 years or so, it's just flourished and turned into this little bohemian mecca, I guess. People move to Asheville to be part of that music scene now. And when I was growing up, you had to move away to be part of a music scene, and that was unfortunate because it's such a beautiful place, and there were so many great musicians and artists and songwriters from there. But the word back then was, if you want to make it in the music business, you're going to have to go to Nashville or LA or New York. And the fact that people now move from New York to Asheville is pretty awesome.
Well, there's a lot of artists. I mean, not just Asheville, but all over North and South Carolina. I mean, guy slips of mine. I interviewed him, but with Kansas and several others, a lot of people in the state. And Asheville, to me, I spent some time in Austin. There's a lot of similarities vibe-wise between the two.
Yeah, I think they're similar for sure. I love Austin. Austin's a great city. And I think Asheville is to North Carolina what Austin is to Texas.
Yep, agreed. Switching to the tour that's coming up with Ziggy Marley. I think that's a pairing I don't think very many fans saw coming. How did that all come about?
Well, we're always looking for interesting, exciting combinations of artists to tour with. We've done so many packages through the years, and as most people know, most Gov't Mule shows are just us. We play a really long time. Very seldom is there an opening act. We usually do two sets, but occasionally when it makes sense, if we pair up with another artist, it's based on there being enough overlap for there to be a similar audience in some ways, but enough contrast to draw from two different pools. So I think in the case with Ziggy, his fans for the most part are not the same as Gov't Mule fans and vice versa, but there is this overlap that exists. And so a lot of his fans will be hearing us for the first time, and a lot of our fans will be hearing him for the first time. But I think in both cases, it's people that really enjoy all different types of music and also just take music very seriously. Music is a big part of their lives. And that's one of the things that I point out about Gov't Mule in general. The one thing that all of our fans or most of our fans seem to have in common is that music is a big deal to them. And I think this is going to be a fantastic tour. Ziggy and I go way back. We wrote a couple of songs together years ago, one of which I recorded on a live album that I did in Austin, Texas, coincidentally enough. There's a record called Live at Moody Theater that I released a few years back, and the song called Dreamin' the Same Dream that he and I wrote together is on that record. And that's why the tour is called Dreamin' the Same Dream. It seems apropos, but also based on a tune that he and I had written together. And the other song that we wrote together is yet to be recorded. Maybe we can pull it out for the tour. We'll see.
Ooh, fun. I just recently remarried and we honeymooned in Jamaica. And one thing that struck me first of all, Jamaica's still very proud of Bob, right?
Oh my
So,
God, yeah,
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 I think he still runs the country from the grave. But one thing I that struck my wife and I about the Jamaican people is money seems to be a distant concern, reasonably speaking, but just how inherently happy they are
yeah,
always. And despite the fact that they had a hurricane hit last year sometime, and our driver told us, we still haven't received the money that the U.S. had raised for and gave to Jamaica, which that should be investigated in my opinion.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that said, the Jamaican people are just so happy and bubbly, and I mean, it should put Americans to shame at how we act.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody's on good weed there or what, but man,
Yeah,
that's what struck us about those people.
it's amazing. We've been Gov't Mule's been doing our Island Exodus shows there every January for 15 years. I don't remember the exact number. We had to miss this year because of the flooding. The resort that we take over down there was not going to be repaired in time, and we're hoping it's going to be and be ready for next January. But we've been enjoying that experience and that culture for about 15 years now. It is fantastic that you mentioned it. People are always happy, always in a good mood, and there is a lot less of a quest for uh, financial success. I think Americans get caught up in that pretty heavily, as does a large part of the world. But when you go somewhere where they don't seem as obsessed with that, it's an eye opener without
Mm-hmm.
question.
Do you think that as a result of this tour, um, I mean, maybe you guys are already talking about, but do you see any kind of collaborative work coming out from all of this, and somewhere down the road, maybe a studio album, maybe a live album?
I hope so. Yeah, we just started talking about what we're going to do as far as sharing the stage together and stuff, and really excited about any collaborations that take place. And I'm sure something really fun is going to come out of it. It always does. You never know what it's going to be, but something cool always happens.
That's cool. One more thing I want to shift to, because I know it's very important to you, and I want people to hear about this. Is um, you the Christmas Jam has become one of America's great musical traditions among us music nuts, right? And you've raised a lot of money for Asheville. Um, First of all, maybe let people know what that's all about. So even if they can't come to the Christmas Jam this year, and on down the road, maybe they can do some online giving. And then, looking back over 3 decades of doing this, what makes you most proud, not as a musician, but as someone who's watched the event transform lives, and especially for being a homeboy there?
Well, I kind of stumbled into that opportunity. Christmas Jam started in 1988 as an opportunity for all the local musicians to get together and play music at the one time that we all seemed to be available and all seemed to be in town because everybody traveled. And that was the Christmas holidays. So it was really designed to have fun. It wasn't like, oh, let's raise money and give it to charity. We just did it for our own enjoyment. And then we're like, well, we didn't make much money. What should we do with it? Well, let's just pick a charity and donate it. And so that's the way it started. We had so much fun, we thought, well, let's do it again next year. Now, bear in mind how long ago 1988 was. I didn't join the Allman Brothers until the next year.
Ah, yeah. Good
And
point.
one of the early charities that we donated to was Vietnam vets. Like, so not Gulf War vets, but Vietnam vets. And we've worked with so many charities since then. Eventually, it got bigger and bigger. We would raise a little more money, and then we stumbled onto Habitat for Humanity. And I've always been a big Jimmy Carter fan, and always considered them a great organization. But once we started getting on the inside of it and realizing, oh, this is great, we get to see where the money's going. We get to see the houses being built. As we continued the whole process, eventually we opened it up to a thing called Before the Jam Lend a Hand, where people can volunteer and actually be part of the process. And people donate in so many different ways, contractors, plumbers, roofers, suppliers, just manual labor. People just come to be part of that experience. And once we started doing that, it put me closer and closer to how emotionally involved you can be with these sort of things, and how I'm even more important than you realize when you start meeting people and working with the people like that. We started like presenting the keys to the new homeowners and stuff. I don't remember how many houses we've built at this point. I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's somewhere around 75 or something. And they're a wonderful organization. And then the last few years, we've also been working with this charity called Beloved Asheville, who also do a tremendous job. And Beloved Asheville and Habitat both were so invaluable during Hurricane Helene and all. I
was going to bring that up.
Flood damage. They both did tremendous work. Obviously we had to skip that year, but we're trying to bring it back. We missed some during COVID as well, but we're trying to bring it back in a full-time basis. There's xmasjam.net. If anybody wants to go check it out, you can see all the great music that's taken place through the years. There's a lot of live releases, both vinyl CDs, but also video DVDs that we've put out through the years, and all the proceeds go to charity. It's a rare event where 100% of the proceeds go to the charity. And I just love the fact that we see where it's all going, and we've had wonderful relationships that we've built with all these people. And I encourage anybody to check it out. If for nothing else, the music is fantastic.
Well, Warren, this was a big bucket list item for me to be able to talk to you. I hope that we get to talk more in the future. I plan on catching your Asheville show, which I think is the second stop for you guys, isn't it? On this tour?
I think that's right. Yeah. I think that's right.
I've reached out to Ziggy's people. I don't think we have anything going with them yet. Ideally, I can talk to him too to focus on this tour and his catalog and such. But hopefully, I can be able to catch your show there in Asheville. It's close enough. And if I do, I'd love to be able to shake your hand and maybe get you to sign an album for me or something.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, my friend, stay safe, stay healthy, and look forward to seeing you in a couple months.
You as well. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been another fun-filled episode of Boomerocity with your host and producer, Randy Patterson. The theme song for Boomerocity is Roll the Dice and is recorded and used by permission from Quentin Hope. Quentin is spelled Quinten, and Hope is H-O-P as in Paul, E. And you can find out more about Quentin Hope and his music at quintenhope.com. Post-production is done by Cardinal Sins Productions. The Boomerocity name, logo, and content is copyright protected. Segments may only be used with written permission by Boomerocity and or its assignees. Inquiries should be directed to input@boomerocity.com. Copyright 2026.